Welcome to Rotten Potatoes with Bryce,
And Forrest.
and we're here to ruin your favorite movies and TV shows. This week, we'll be ruining Captain Marvel with our very special guest, Hector.
How's it going, everybody? What
That's
did you
fine.
guys think about the movie?
So, I was watching Captain Marvel, and, I'm not really that big of a Marvel fan. I'm more towards the DC point, and, any superhero movies like my favorite movie. So I went in there, thinking, this is going to be a great movie that I was really hoping that, like, Adam Warlock, they would have done something with Adam Warlock just because the Avengers and everything like that. That's Adam Warlock's the one that did it all, and then yet we have Captain Marvel that's taking his place. So I was already kind of salty going into the whole movie just because I really wanted to see Adam Warlock do his thing.
What about you, Forrest?
Well, I thought I went into it thinking, it's going to be a kind of subpar Marvel movie, just because the previews weren't what I wanted them to be. It was a good movie. It just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. As far as Marvel movies go.
So, like, all in all, kind of like a disappointing sit down, or was it just not what you were expecting?
It kind of felt like it was filling holes that needed to be filled, and like trying really hard to like connect to the other movies and storylines.
Right, yeah, because it's kind of hard to do an origin story and have it fill in the gaps to where we need to jump from chronologically the first movie, right, of the MCU
Mm-hmm.
to the very last one. So
Right.
they needed a lot of holes to fill. And so you think that kind of like brought the whole thing down just because he was trying to fill that all those holes that needed to be filled for Endgame.
Somewhat, yeah. I think they were kind of pushing it a little bit. But I mean, overall, they did okay.
So what were your thoughts, Hector?
Well, coming going into the movie, I had seen all the promotions, all the interviews with Brie Larson and the directors, and I wasn't too keen on the movie. I'll be honest. It was kind of hard. Like the first 15 minutes was slow to begin with for me, but it's kind of hard for me to separate like the real world like stuff that they were trying to do in the movie. So the first 15 minutes for me really suffered in that regard. But I was thoroughly entertained. There wasn't a point in the movie where I was like, man, this drags.
Yeah,
This
that's
kind of
true.
sucks.
Yeah, I mean, like, it got you engaged for most of the movie. Like, I mean, it wasn't anything I really enjoyed or anything. I mean, granted, I was so like annoyed when they got into their suits and she had a mohawk. I was like, "Is this needed?" Like,
The
Yeah,
like
mohawk was weird. I'll admit the mohawk was kind of weird. But
yeah.
what would be like the opposite of that? Just like have her hair disappear?
yeah, I mean, she's in a cap. Like, she's in a like
Ponytail,
a
maybe. I don't know.
I don't. It's just a weird like mohawk. Because at first, like when I saw the mohawk, I was like, "Oh, that's not Captain Marvel." Like, that's one of the other people that they like rode with. Like, I was like, I didn't see anyone with like a blonde mohawk. I was like, there's no way that they would just transform her hair into a mohawk. Like, I was like, what?
I will say though, while the mohawk was kind of like a weird add-on, it was kind of like a more like a visual thing, right? It did had the really cool effect of whenever she took her mask off, her hair would fall. And
Mhm.
Yeah,
I really like that. That was kind of aesthetically pleasing to me.
yeah. They put a lot of detail into the little things, which that was kind of enjoyable.
Well, speaking of the little things, had you guys, or did you guys notice at all the CGI in it?
I mean,
Like,
obviously they're CGI.
well,
And
no,
like,
like the de aging stuff.
I mean, I feel like they just like I don't know. I mean, I know you two don't really watch The Office, but there's an episode where Creed gets toner ink from the printer and just like, rubs it on his hair to like get it like black dark, and I feel like that's what they did with Samuel L. Jackson. I was like, I just don't know.
well, when you
It was
know
weird.
how old he is, you're thinking like, okay, hold on a minute here.
Okay, so how did you guys feel about like Agent Coulson being back alive in the MCU and not just Shield?
They didn't expand on him a whole lot. Granted, he was the new guy, but I felt like he should have had more of a role in there because that actor is just a great actor, and I think he portrays him quite well. And so it just was kind of sad that snippet here, snippet there, and that was it.
So I'm gonna go on a weird note here because in the first Iron Man movie, they come to him and they have this huge long name of what it's called, and they don't have it called Shield yet. But in this movie, they already have it called Shield. like 30 years before that.
I did notice that, and I was like, well, that's an inconsistency. But like, that's for people that like are real into it, and they're like watching the TV show and then watching Avengers like 6 times. I'm sure the casual
Yeah.
moviegoer were like, oh yes, I remember that name,
Right.
the
Yeah.
Shield.
Yeah.
Yeah, but TV shows that are on for years, they make sure that that stuff's lined up. And so, like, that's what really upset me is that it's kind of like they didn't care, like, to make sure that all the I's were dotted and all the T's were crossed. That's something that is not important, but it is.
Do you think that was an oversight, or did you think it had more to do with audience recognition of who they were? Because they really didn't go into what the agency was, rather other than just saying they were Shield.
I think everything was forced. The shield, the cat's catching Fury's eye. Like, I just felt like they forced a whole lot of stuff. Just be, oh, look how we can tie all this in together. But they didn't focus on like what truly tied the universe together. They just like made all these little weird like snippets that like caused it to be like, oh, look, we're relevant. Like, I don't know. It just
Yeah, the whole Fury's Eye thing. If you guys didn't remember, or kind of a refresher. So in Captain America, the first Avenger, it was which one was the movie that they discover that Shield is actually Hydra? Is it Winter Soldier? I think it is, right? 'Cause that's
yeah,
when Bucky comes back.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Fury tells someone, I don't remember who he's talking to. He tells them, or they ask about his eye. It's like, oh, what happened to your eye? And he goes, the last time I trusted someone, like this happened. And then we get the reveal now that it was a cat that he trusted. That feels to me like a Ryan Johnson level of subversion, you know?
Right, and it's like
That's pretty funny.
they forced the whole "I trusted you, I trust you, I trust you so much" cat. Like, I don't know. It just felt like I'm Captain Marvel and I want to be relevant to the universe kind of situation. Like around like just the whole movie. And like not even the Marvel universe, but the whole forced nostalgia that they just kept hitting on with the whole blockbuster, with Radio Shack. It just felt like, oh look, 90s kids, like we want to be relevant and hit, you too. And so like that's what was really kind of upsetting is that like why did you need to land in a blockbuster? Why did you need to mention Radio Shack?
Well,
Like
because it's funny, right? It's the Marvel brand of humor, where
Yeah.
it's nothing more than a throwaway sight gag,
and I
right?
think
Hmm.
I think it's because of Disney. Like, because I think as Disney progresses into the Marvel universe, it's just gotten more and more that way. And it was super annoying just to see that. Like, I was really irritated when I saw that. And it's just like Disney's grasp on Marvel causing all of this.
What do you think about
I
that?
don't know.
First?
I think Bryce has an unfair like hatred for Disney for some reason. If you listen to a couple of these, you'll probably get that. But really, he tends to go on rants on Disney. But overall, I didn't think those parts really hurt the movie at all. I think they're funny. I was in the theater with like 8 old people, and they all laughed. So they
Yes,
got
I
it.
remember my 40. No, but I mean, to me, I think they were just kind of not a cheap way, but a very loose and fast way to have that instant rapport with the audience,
Hmm.
where it's like, oh yes, I remember. It's funny that it's
Right.
set in the '90s and that she landed in a blockbuster, and the only like the go-to communication store is Radio Shack,
Right.
right? And then other things, I don't know, like the Nine Inch Nails shirt that she was wearing and like the
Yeah, that was
grunge
great.
stuff. I really enjoyed that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, I did like the whole, like, oh, we're just going with the grunge look, are we? Like, that did make my day.
Yeah, and this was set
Uh,
when in 1995, right?
I don't remember the exact year that.
I'm
I
not
just know
sure
it
on
was the
that.
90s, yeah.
I mean, just to, to put it in kind of perspective, 1994 was when Kurt Cobain died. So the grunge was at the
Oh,
max at that time.
too soon.
Yeah, it was too
It's been
soon. I don't
20
know.
years.
I don't know why we brought that up. That was
It's
really
been
stupid.
more than that. It's been like 25 years.
I don't appreciate that attack on my culture. But like, and I thought the cool thing is like the moment I saw Jude Law, I was like, oh, well, he's definitely a bad guy. And then they're like, oh no, he's a good guy. I'm like, nah, he's a bad guy. Jude Law's he's never good.
Right, but we were kind of talking about this a little bit. We kind of touched on it before the podcast. It was Ben Mendelsohn and Jude Law in the same movie.
Right, and it's like both of those are bad guys, so it's like I don't know who to trust.
Talking about like the plot of the movie a little bit. Right from the get go. I don't know if you guys know, but like a big trope in movies is that whenever someone stifles someone else, whether that be like don't use your strength or don't lose your don't lose your
Yeah.
cool or something like that, that's always kind of viewed as a negative, right? Because most movies, especially in a breakout superhero movie, it kind of champions like do your own thing, be yourself, and all that kind of stuff. So immediately I was like, oh, there's a twist coming, right? Because this guy isn't a good guy. If his whole
Trying
stick,
to
right? If his whole
put control.
right, if his whole stick is you got to control your powers and don't use them unless we say so, and like got to keep your cool. And I was like, this guy's evil. This guy has to be
Right.
evil.
Yeah.
I got the thought that it was like an empire right away, and I was like, well, most empires are pretty evil. Okay, we got the British Empire, we have Rome. Like both of them took over lots of people, made them do what they wanted to do, and I kind of saw the scroll as the Gauls. You know, they were just getting beat up constantly and pushed out of their land. You know,
Yeah.
a little history
And I guess
buff there.
I thought you were gonna go, to keep in in theme of like superheroes. I thought you were gonna go like the Empire from Star Wars, the First Order, and then you went really like dark
all of
side
those
on
really
this
connect.
because you went to like the British Empire, and I was like, oh man.
threw it back to the Renaissance.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I went like super nerd.
Anyone else catch like the whole Ben Mendelsohn where he was like, "Oh yeah, I could switch back to your boss. I like the way he looked. He looked really good." I mean, because it was him. So like I was like, "Yeah."
I enjoyed that character once we got to know him though, because he was really funny and actually like it's kind of goofy, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Ben's character Talos, he
Mhm.
was, apart from obviously the titular character and him being kind of, the vehicle to where the plot kind of advanced, right? Because we need him for conflict, and then the big
Right.
twist, he's now your ally. I think that he, in my eyes, was kind of like the protagonist in a way. The whole movie, Captain Marvel, Brie Larson was kind of reactionary to all of the events, right? Like there was never a moment where she kind of took the initiative until the very end, where she burned her chip down. Right? She figured out that it wasn't
Mhm.
giving her the powers, but it was controlling her powers. So she seemed very reactionary to me the whole movie. And obviously, you can't have a movie where something just happens to you over and over and you just react to it. That's not really the hero's arc. So for me, Talos
Mhm.
was the protagonist, and he kind of stole the show for me because he's just funny and like
Oh, he was absolutely like he was the one. I mean, he's the one that caused her to get captured. Like he was the one that like he had the plan to get her captured. He had the plan, to bring her to Earth. She like he. I mean, he was in charge of the show. Like I think he was. He's my favorite.
I agree with that though, definitely, because you see you see a transformation of him, you know, throughout the movie because he's this evil guy in the beginning, you know, and just because we don't know him, you know, and then he grows to become this person that is like, hey, my people are dying and I need help, and I'm coming to you. That should show you something, you know.
right. Do you So it just occurred to me: is Talos the only person who had an arc, like a fully fledged arc in that movie? Because he goes from like primary antagonist, to some like ally, and then ultimately like the person who is not just like this terrorist, but like a family man, and like wants the safety of his people. And I didn't really see, and maybe I missed it. Maybe you guys can help me out on that. But uh, was there any other character that had an arc, like to finish from start to finish in the movie?
I mean, Jan Rogue was kind of the opposite, but it wasn't because of him. Like it wasn't because he wanted to. I mean, it did show like it showed from like when Captain Marvel like got the explosion and that he was there to find her and that what I mean that's how you knew that he was an evil character. So like it does show him from good to evil
Right,
and
but
it
was it
goes into greater detail on like who he is as a person.
right? But was it like a growth because of the events of the plot, or is it because just new information came to light, or is it just the same thing? In your
I mean,
opinion?
it's time. So like as we knew information came along, but it's not like he changed as a person because Talos, I mean, was technically the same person throughout the movie. We just learned more about him. But Jan Rogue, I mean, we portrayed him as a good guy. We portrayed him as the captain, as the truth seeker, and like we saw that he lied to his own men to get to Earth, and he didn't tell them any kind of information of what was going on.
Yep.
I mean, he was a hidden devil.
Yep. C-53. Every time they said C-53, it reminded me of Rick and Morty's universe, C-137. Every single time.
I kept thinking bingo, but that's just me.
Last time I checked, I didn't know there was a C in bingo.
But I think Jan Rog, like, in some ways though, he's not the complete evil person that like some people might make him out to be, because he didn't want Ronan to come destroy the Earth or whatever right away, because he thought he could handle it on his own and not destroy everything.
Right, but wasn't like the final, like, wasn't the whole point of his like excursion or whatever was to find the fast as light? They said fast as light, not faster than light, right?
That was a light speed.
Or like yeah, light speed
It was
engine,
light speed, yeah.
to be able to catch up to all the scroll and kill them.
Which they never really like went into depth on like why they wanted the light speed engine.
Right.
It was just pretty much the scroll wanted it to get away, and so
Right. So there's no background as far as like why they wanted it or how they were going to use it.
and honestly, like if you think about it, like he was just a soldier, so I mean he could still be technically a good guy. He just has,
Mm-hmm.
because the scroll did copied the likeness of their soldiers and stuff like that, and became them and overthrew them in certain areas. If you look more into the Marvel universe, I mean, the scroll are bad people.
But I know it's gonna be interesting to see where they go from here as far as movies go. Because are they gonna introduce the Kree Skrull War or like the
Honestly,
Scree or Skrull infiltration?
honestly, I think it's the end game, and I'm not so sure. I mean, granted, there is a few movies that are getting ready to come out because I think what Spider-Man has one,
Black Panther has one.
and
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther has
Yeah.
another one. But I think this was just a movie to introduce
Yeah. It's
like
kind of like that first Thor movie. Not good.
Right, but yeah, but at least obviously, yeah, it wasn't very good, but at least Thor was its own contained movie.
Yeah.
So like versus
It
Captain,
wasn't pieces.
right? Because Captain Marvel, like hard, like try as hard as you can't really divorce the origin story of Captain Marvel while kind of patching things up, filling holes here and there in the
Right.
MCU, and not open the door up for possibilities. Because
Mm-hmm.
when we get introduced to the scroll, one of the biggest comic events is Civil War II, which Captain Marvel isn't shown in a very good light there, at least in the comics, which then goes into Scroll Invasion War. I think it's what it's called. I'm not too sure.
and I mean it's all kind of just a jumbled mess. And I think honestly in the end game or any of the other movies that are going to come out, like I don't think that the Kree or the Skrull are going to be even mentioned. Like I think they're just going to go back and focus on what the whole franchise is going for. Like I think yeah, I was a part of it. And yeah, they showed, Fury and like how Fury knew Marvel and like why Fury had the pager, but I honestly think it's kind of like an improv. They go in the scene like we have to knock this point, and this point out. Everything else is filler, and I think that's what Captain Marvel movie is. I think that they made sure they made sure that Goose scratched out Fury's eye. Trying to think what else. They introduced Agent Coulson. Just showing
Well,
that it was all there, but I don't think it was purposely like connected.
I think the end of it definitely leads off to the next one of her going back and destroying the AI and trying to complete that. So you will see the Kree again. I don't know about the scroll, but I really do believe the next movie will be her against the Kree.
Right, because there's no way they're not making a sequel. I mean, it broke
Mm-hmm.
records, and well, I don't think it broke records, but it was very successful in the box office this weekend. It
Right.
was like
It's a Marvel
right,
movie.
it's like 300 million, I think it was. I mean, it was like number 7 in like the top Marvel movies to come out.
Well, it's because it's 2019 and you have a female lead actress, and then you have Marvel as well. Like I mean,
It does
that's
help.
honestly what drove the numbers. And I mean, I thought it was a bad movie, but like I think that's what drove people to the box office because like even all the reviews you read on it, they're not. I mean, it's not a good movie.
Well, do you
I,
guys kind of want to dive into that? You guys want to talk about kind of the controversy that followed this movie with Brie Larson and
I don't think it's completely because of that. I mean, I believe that just being a Marvel movie on its own will lead you to a successful movie. It doesn't
Oh,
have to
absolutely.
be
Yeah.
an amazing breakout hit to get the views. You're gonna see tons of people show up anyways, and if a female lead's gonna get them there, they're not gonna shy away from keeping that. There's no reason not to.
Right. I mean,
She did a good job. She was a great
Oh
actress.
yeah. She
I
did
just don't
great.
think the plot was great.
yeah. I mean, I think it's a combination of stuff. I know there's like a certain sect on the internet that was like boycotting this. They don't want anything to do with whatever the agenda or what they perceive the agenda to be. And then there's other people that are, because of the agenda or perceived agenda or whatever, are gonna make a point to go see it, right? But I think the majority of
Mm-hmm.
people are gonna go because A, they either don't know about the controversy, B, don't care, or they just need to check that list or check that box off their list of seeing the
Right.
next Marvel movie and knowing what's going to happen going into Endgame.
Yep. Checking that next box. That's where I was.
Yeah,
Not gonna
yeah,
lie.
that's. I mean, the movie looked cool. I was gonna see it regardless because I want to know what happens in Endgame, obviously. So I
Mm-hmm.
think this was not to be a detriment to the movie, but I think this was kind of like an appetizer for Endgame.
Definitely, completely, dude. I I saw the little clip at the end, and that was more exciting than the whole movie
Oof, dude, I
put together.
I was I was on fire, dude. I was like, let's go. I want Endgame
Yep.
right now.
Yep. I left the movie theater like pumped, like yes, this is great. When's the movie? Like let's go.
And the crazy thing is, it comes out in a month, like a little over a month.
Right.
That's crazy.
Which that's good because they're gonna keep the hype and they're gonna be able to bring the people right back in that they just had.
Oh yeah. But my favorite scene, and I don't know why this hasn't been mentioned yet, was Stan Lee's cameo. Like, man, I thought that was
Man,
good. And it was really sad, like especially the beginning, like when they like showed like the whole Marvel universe, and they just showed Stan Lee
right.
and everything, and like,
All of his cameos.
and then thanks Stan. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna
Oh,
tear up.
I kind of forgot that this was the first movie where like that came out after he passed away.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that sucks.
That little smile he gave her, and she gave him one back, and I was just
Right.
heartbreaking,
It
dude.
was it was
So heartbreaking.
more than a cameo than kind of like a final nod, you know?
It was
Because usually,
Yeah.
foresight, man.
yeah, usually the characters don't interact with the cameos. I think the closest one
Mm-hmm.
was the Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he's fighting the lizard. No, was it was one, the Amazing Spider-Man 1, where they're fighting in the class or in the library, and Stanley is the
Right.
librarian, and the fight's going
Cleaning
on
up,
behind
listening
him.
to music.
Yeah, I think that's
Yep.
as close as you would get to like interacting, but this one was like a direct like eye
Mm-hmm.
contact, nod, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And like to be Brie Larson and just be like, I was that person. Like that was what I think that's pretty awesome. Like that she got to be the last one to do a cameo with him, which I'm hoping that they
Mm-hmm.
do some kind of CGI or some kind of at least nods or voice lines from.
Well, they said they have a couple in the bucket recorded.
Yeah, there was like 3 or something. I thought
Yeah, so maybe we'll get one in the Amazing or
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man Away from Home and the new
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther one, if those are the next ones.
Yeah, yeah.
My favorite part of the movie was it was like a little shtick right before they introduced Goose to be an alien, or kind of revealed to be an alien, where they're scanning the people. The Kree were scanning the people on the ship, and
Yeah.
and they go up to the cat, and it's like high risk, muzzle them right away. And then they go to Fury, and then it's like, oh, he's just a human, he's low risk. And the guys, it's broken.
Minimum to none.
And I think the best part about that whole thing is because it was Samuel L. Jackson. Like, if anyone knows like his acting experience and what he's in and stuff like that, I laughed way too hard at that because it's like,
That
man.
thing's broken.
I loved Samuel L. Jackson in this movie. I think the chemistry he had with Brie Larson is kind of like a buddy cop movie at times.
Mm-hmm.
I think it had a real good like flow between them. Like the scenes that they shared were
Yeah.
some of the most memorable ones. And I don't know, for all the faults that this movie had landing flat on the emotional side, when she learns that she was betrayed by the Kree, that they're not telling her this
Mhm.
whole story, it kind of fell flat to me a little bit
I
because
agree.
I just don't think it was very well, founded.
Yeah.
It's kind of rushed.
It didn't flow.
Yeah.
There was no
Yeah, that
connectivity there.
that's that scene after she learns about the betrayal and the black box, where she runs outside and her best friend are kind of having this like very emotional discussion about not knowing who she is, and she's like, "Oh, you're my best friend." I don't know. It kind of fell flat, fell a little bit flat to me.
Yeah, not a lot of emotion going around. Pretty lackluster.
But like with her daughter and sharing that love, um,
That was
Monica,
good. Yeah.
I just like, man, I felt so bad because like she, when they were showing the pictures, when they were showing just everything that they were best friends about, like that's what was like really kind of heartbreaking is that child who hasn't seen
Her
her,
auntie.
yeah, her auntie in
Mhm.
so long, and she comes back and doesn't remember her, and like she's sitting there so excited, like, oh yeah, yeah, mom used to let me wear your jacket all the time until I got ketchup on it, and now I'm not allowed to wear it anymore. Like that was
Showing photos of her, like, hey, this is your dad. This is when you did this. This is when you did this. Like, because she had to have explained that to her in the beginning when she was there originally.
right.
Right.
And that just shows the relationship that was built there, and then she's not able to remember it.
Right. Well,
And that's part of the struggle for her.
fun fact, actually, that the little girl Monica Rambeau is actually a nod. That's the name of one of the characters in the Marvel universe that takes up the mantle as Captain Marvel. So I'm wondering if they plant that
Oh,
in, Captain Marvel 16 in, in
very
like 25. You
sneaky.
know what I mean?
I mean, it could just be like James Bond, where Captain Marvel never dies, and they just replace him with
30 years
different.
from now.
Oh yeah. I mean, it could be.
I mean, if we're comparing this movie at all, like I think if we could find an exact movie, I think we're looking at Green Lantern. Like,
Wow. Hot take.
Well,
Hot take
it
here.
was no Green Hornet. Let me tell you what. Best movie of all time. Go watch it. It's fantastic.
Awful. Don't go watch
Green
it.
Hornet.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
he's
it's
talking about
bad.
Green Hornet.
Don't watch it.
Don't go watch Green Hornet.
I like Green Hornet.
It's awful. It's a waste of 2 hours.
Nah, if you love Seth Rogen, it'll be fun. But yeah, I think you're right. I hate to say that, but I believe it's also Green Lantern esque. All the storylines kind of the same way too.
For me, it was a very
I'm
middle of the road uh, MCU movie. It wasn't like higher echelon, like top tier, you know, movie, but it wasn't like it wasn't awful. It wasn't Thor 1 or Thor 2 awful. Those are just
Thor 1 was pretty
they're
bad.
they're pretty awful movies. And so I mean, and even saying it's mid tier MCU, it's kind of like saying like mid tier Game of Thrones episode. It's still better than any other movie that's been coming out. They're
Right.
they're on their own level, and being a mid tier Marvel movie is
quality.
not bad.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I agree with that.
Like, I think with like
You're still getting great content like to fill in the storyline, Like it all connects even though they forced it a little bit,
Right? There's some
But
there's some
it works.
iffy parts. The CGI was great.
well, they definitely
The
put
setting.
money into it for sure. Yeah, I mean, the funding that they had for this movie was absolutely fantastic because you really couldn't tell. There was only like one part, and that was when what was that? The center or the superior took over her. Those little like snake, like worm like lines,
The
like
super intelligence.
yeah, that was the
Like the AI.
yeah, that was the only like CG that I was like, wow, that was choppy.
Really, you didn't like that? I thought that was one of the
It was
standout
okay.
points of the movie.
So the second time that she got wrapped into it, yes, that was fantastic. But the first time she got wrapped into it,
Oh, okay.
you could like tell like it was just off. Like it wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't there. Like I don't think they did a whole lot of work and made sure it was perfect. I did like the universe itself. Like I thought that was a really great. They did a great job with that. But just like the worm like AI that like she was wrapped in, like you could definitely tell it wasn't there. And like the impressions from like being wrapped wasn't there either. And so like it just looked fake.
What'd you guys think about the fight scene towards the end of the movie in space when Ronan the Accuser shows up?
I think she was like, I'm gonna be like Superman today, and I'm just gonna wreck face, and that's what I was kind of like upset about because she somewhat found her pure energy when she was on the ship, but she didn't like, you haven't tapped into it. Yeah, you might like know it. It's just like you grew up too fast, so like you have this energy, but you don't necessarily know 100% how to use it. And the fact that she just went against a missile is like, I can take this without even like a second thought. And she launches it back, and then they just happen to all chain react with each other. Like, I feel like that was a way big of a stretch there.
Well, when a bomb goes off, there's a big wave coming off that thing, no matter what it is.
Right.
It's gonna cause some reaction. But I also think it's that hero moment where you're like, okay, I have to do this, whether I can survive it or not,
with the
or else a
mohawk.
lot of people are gonna die. I have to do this. It's a hero moment.
Right. I actually that was one of the highlights of the movie for me. Like the comedy was
Mm-hmm.
a highlight for me. I usually don't like the comedy in Marvel movies, but this was just enough for me to like it. And this last like you said for us, like the hero fight scene where she kind of just lets loose and she's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, let's see what I can do." Like, really, let me
Right.
just flex on these guys real quick.
And she showed her emotion, which Jan Rogue didn't want her to show any emotion, and so like it kind of portrayed to that her power does go through emotion, and that she can wreck an entire ship or
Right.
two.
Bringing it full circle. Bringing it full circle.
But that might be a subject for the next movie where she gets too emotional and he's actually right,
Do you think
and that becomes an issue.
do you think they're gonna fall into the trap of the Superman kind of caricature of a hero where he's too OP and he's not really relatable anymore?
I was kind of afraid of that, honestly. When she blew the ship up, I was like, that's pretty that's pretty baller, but it's also really overpowered.
Yeah, because like all of a sudden she just destroyed all of that. A, you don't need anyone to count on. B, you obviously don't have any kryptonite that would like destroy you. So it's like, okay, now we have an invincible human being that can just wreck face. And so that's why I was
Right,
like
she does what the entire team does on their own, like by herself.
yeah. And it's like, why do you need the Avengers?
Yeah, and I think in that aspect, maybe, and this is kind of like long term, right, where she needs to face some adversity that she probably might not have because she's the Superman of Marvel. But so in the comic books, she actually gets her powers from a white dwarf or a white hole, excuse me.
Mm.
So she's like tapping into this like galactic force where she can use her powers, and then she gets that cut off, and then that's when Captain Marvel transfers his power because it's a guy in the comic books to her.
I'm just gonna stop right there. We're going full circle because you know how Green Lantern harnesses his power from a lantern, and sometimes it gets cut off, and sometimes it needs recharged. This is why this is a Green Lantern movie. This is why Captain
Well,
Marvel is trash.
it's not like he needs to run. It's not like she needs to run home and charge her magic ring. She gets like cut off by a galactic force.
I'm just saying.
Hold on, battery's running low. It's getting dark.
Oh, too soon. Too soon. Rest in peace, opportunity. Rest in peace. Can we just like talk? I know this is on a tangent, but can we please talk about how Elon Musk has the Mars and has the revive on Mars display picture
the
right now?
meme, yeah.
Oh man.
Revive me! I have the ray gun.
But like I think in the end game, I think she'll have scenes where she just totally pops off, and then they're just like gonna like send her off to do something else, so to make it like a hard scene again, or to like make it where it's challenging. Like where the last Avengers movie, where like the Black Panther, he's back in Wakanda. The last force comes in, and then Thor out of nowhere just wrecks space. Like I think that we're gonna see that a lot more, but with Captain Marvel, like they're gonna be in the middle of a fight that they can't win. All of a sudden, Captain Marvel comes out of left field and just boom saves the day.
So now Marvel has two ex machinas in their back pocket. One being Thor, the literal god, and then Captain Marvel being literally one of the strongest Marvel heroes in existence.
Yeah, I think they're just gonna
Right.
tag team. Like I think all of a sudden Captain Marvel's gonna have to recharge because she's a Green Lantern, and Thor's gonna come in unarmored and finish it up.
No, Thor's gonna charge her, dude, with his lightning.
Boom, infinite power.
What I want to see in Captain Marvel 2 or 3, because they're gonna make more, is her getting into a fight where she can't win against the Kree, because I mean she did face up against her former team, which is like 5 against 1, right? But they have a whole
Right.
army. They have star systems
Yep.
filled with Kree soldiers. No, I want to see that on the big screen. I want the fight scenes to be shot in IMAX, 70 millimeter. I want big explosions. I want tanks, bombs.
Yeah, because how many like huge scale warfares do you see in space other than like the Star Wars universe and like sometimes you get a Star Trek, but like what's Marvel's idea of space war and like
Space.
how things are happening?
Well, Trump's gonna send up the Space Force and just defeat.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Eat the krill. But yeah, and I understand that, but I just feel like
Space wall.
And we're gonna make the krill pay for it.
Yeah. That wraps up our podcast for the week. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and listening to us.
You guys for having me.
we hope to have you back on there soon. Tune in next week for us to spoil something new.